And you know what? I'm just going to bring up my account. I used to run some sessions internally, and I had an opportunity to start creating something with agents in Bedrock. And just to make it a little bit more visually clear, anybody can use agents. And I was having a small conversation with Coach Charisma before we started this conversation. I was like, you know what? I'm struggling with understanding how the individual user could actually use agents. And I see very clearly how enterprise companies can start to use agents based on Jupyter notebooks that they might build out and SageMaker, which is an opportunity for us to take a look at. And we will very briefly, we won't do a deep dive. But I remember being in my account and showing some agents and how, and now this is jogging my memory on how you can use it on a personal level, and especially with Amazon Bedrock. And I got a few agents that are already been prepared, but I'm working on something here. And I usually like to generate content. You're looking at LinkedIn right now, you're probably seeing this video, and you're looking at YouTube and you're probably seeing this video. So it's obvious that we like to create content. Maybe I can fast track creating that content. So there's a couple of things and a couple of ways that I thought about doing this. The first thing that I've done is I've embedded an application into a Python script that I've created. So I embedded Bedrock API. That's one way, but I didn't use agents. But here's another way. And so I got these two agents here. One's named Barney and one is named Fred, and they're based on the Flintstones, Coach.
Bedrock.
Yeah, and that's what I thought about it. I was like, all right, cool. I also have some VPC stuff that's based on the Flintstones. But when you're in Bedrock and you're building out agents, you're going to give this description, and it's going to tell you what this agent is going to do. Maybe Barney is a hardworking persona designed to handle the general and tedious tasks of content creation for the blog. And so you'll have a way of organizing this. And again, this isn't fully prepared, but as you're creating this agent, there's a way for you to tap into the parameters, the foundation models and such, which I've done separately. I won't deep dive into that. And then there's another agent here named Fred. And Fred, if you ever watched the Flintstones, Fred in the relationship with Barney is like the smarter character, right? Maybe the manager. And so I'm thinking about a Bedrock media company where Fred here has the opportunity to present the idea, and then Barney as an agent will go out and would start to create the content. And basically you will come up with these flows, and you can use these different knowledge bases, and you can use prompt management to consider all of that. And yes, Bedrock does give you a way to do it. Again, I haven't fully built this out, but this is just one view of getting started with that, right? Just the initial process. There's more that I have to do here. But again, I'm thinking about Fred speaking to Barney. I want to pull up one of these labs, and it's a Simulearn lab that I was working on, and it produces this particular Jupyter notebook that you can run, and it really allows you to wrap your minds around agents and how Fred and Barney would have this conversation with each other. And I don't want to read through this at all, but I do want to show you one important thing, right? And it's using Python. If Python isn't your thing, don't worry. But throughout this particular script, this Jupyter notebook, time and time again, you'll see us capturing the memory ID that we generate in the session that is generated. Because let's say Fred, in that scenario that I was talking about, comes up with a content idea. When Fred wants to pass that message on to Barney so Barney can generate the content, Barney is going to need, that agent is going to need the memory, right? What did Fred even talk about? It's also going to need like what session that came from. And really, this is the link. Right. And as Coach was talking about using Alexa and some of these other services, I just want you to get the clear picture about what's happening in the background. We can use different foundation models between Fred and Barney. If we'd like to, we can use the same one, but there's a session and there's some memory that the agent needs to hold on to. And then going back to what we saw in Party Rock, when we were taking a look at those different models working together, that's the whole conversation there. We dropped down and saw temperature and parameters. Those are things that you can embed. So now I can say, you know what, Fred is maybe the boss, and Fred is giving some clear, concise orders, and Barney needs to be more creative. So the temperature, the top P, the top K, like we talked about in previous weeks, might be different from when I'm organizing Fred versus Barney. But you got these agents that get to speak to each other. I just want to bring that out. But let's get back to looking at some of these articles around building agentic solutions, right? And Coach, I don't know if you played around with Bedrock doing that, but I had a little bit of fun kind of building out those agents and working through them kind of conversing through each other. Fred and Barney, I'm still working through. I used one of our colleagues presented a lab that I ran through as we were considering some internal sessions with ACI and AIP, right? But here's another block here. Building agentic solutions with DeepSeek R1, Crew AI, and Amazon SageMaker AI. And Coach and folks out there have an opportunity to look through this, right? It really zeroes in on the effectiveness of agents. And there's a very nice quote that I like here at the very beginning of this article. It talks about the future of agentic systems, and it says 82% of organizations are planning on adopting it within the next 3 years. There's also a survey of 1,000 plus executives at large enterprise companies that talk about 10% of their organizations already using AI agents. And this is the article that came out last month. Coach, I know that you've been talking about this so much, especially with our CEO, and how we're moving towards agentic solutions time and time again, right?
Yeah, and it's one of those things that I flip between which ones are my favorite services every week, it seems. But Amazon Q is one of the services that, again, puts it at our fingertips, in my opinion. And no matter what size of business, whether it's an individual entrepreneur, you're able to use these services to really step up your game, right? Any AI service that you're using in your personal life, your business life, whatever that is, it doesn't matter. Use it, right? Use what makes you successful is what I honestly would say. Bookmark your browser on my personal laptop, on my work laptop. There are certain personas or services, AI specific services that come up first. They're defaulted to my browser. It's forcing me to do something every day with AI. There's hands down. But where I would go with this and leading into security, at the end of the day, it's all about the data. And how do we secure that data that these models are using? How do we secure the data that is being provided back to our customer base? And the customer could be a couple of different viewpoints, right? If I have a small business and my customer is chatting with my chatbot, I want to make sure that it's concise information, that it's accurate information, that it's secure information. If my customer is inputting their own personal information into that chatbot, again, I want to secure that information. I want to secure that data. And I want to secure that from others that may potentially gain access to that data or provide or present some type of harm. Where I would go, though, is this is why early on we talked about where I achieved the data engineering associate, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, and we'll do another shout out to Woodrow, right? It's like peanut butter and jelly, right? The data and ML goes hand in hand. You can't provide or create this ML model without some data that it's been trained on.
Yeah.
And so where that data, and I'll honestly say, when we think about a skills or gap perspective for years to come, it's going to be data analytics, it's going to be security, it's going to be cloud, and how we now transform and use all of these great resources to move forward. Because the foundational principles do not go away. We come back to the AWS shared responsibility model. Securing your data is a shared responsibility between you and AWS, right? You as an entrepreneur, you as a small business, you as a medium or enterprise business, whatever that means to you. You've got to understand what are the mechanisms to be able to do. And where this particular article comes back to SageMaker AI and just another service outside of Bedrock but it does partner, or should I say behind the scenes, collaborate with Bedrock if there are certain agents that you're using or certain models that you're using to make those API calls back to Bedrock.
Absolutely.
I love Nova right now. That's another one, right? Because it gives me the creativity of being able to create these awesome cat videos, right? That's eating a burger or whatever, flying fish in the clouds. I don't know, whatever works for you, right? And it allows my son to see a few different things as well. And he's, oh yeah, let's do that. I like that one. So I create these different varieties and it excites him, right? In the sense that when he's playing a video game or Minecraft or something like that, it expands on his creativity in the way that it explodes. But again, that's just my 2 cents there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I love what you're saying, especially around like security and being effective with security, and agentic solutions really help us out. And when you think about that as a concept, that's really not different than what we've been doing with traditional applications in the past. We always thought about security. We've always been trying to make sure that the data is handled well. But now we have agentic solutions. So That's going to make us more efficient. When you think about the traditional application, you had to hard code those validations, right? You had to be able to put that into your application to say what's right and what's not. And if you miss something, then you miss something, right? You didn't think it all the way through. But now you have this agentic system that is autonomous, that is intelligent, that can watch live security logs, right? The security logs are coming into your system. It's not just rule based, but it's aware of its environment. So maybe even projecting when security is going to go awry. And so that's the biggest deal, I would say, that agentic solutions bring to the table when you consider something like security or compliance, just being a step ahead of even just horizontally scale event driven traditional